Yo, I'm like super curious if you guys have ever had to call the police before. Like, I mean, physically, have you had to pick up the phone and dial 911 before? Boy. Like, I don't know if it's just like a me thing but I feel like when I was younger, like, calling 911 was one of those things like, I don't know if you call it like a taboo. Like, what I mean, guys, so like when I was younger, I really felt as if calling the police was like not a good thing. Like, if you were to call the police, it was like you could get in trouble for doing it, or I don't know, like, because I don't know, whenever you're a kid, I don't know if your parents told me. I don't remember if my parents specifically told me, but there was always like a stigma, like, don't call 911, it's bad. Like, I don't know. Did you guys have that similar thing growing up? The reason why I asked that is because I am 19 years old and I have only called the police twice in my life, and it had only been in the last about a year. So like, I have gone almost my whole entire life until now, until having to call the police. Now, I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing, but I just feel like if you were to like call the police, you're always like, is the thing you're calling it about really worth it? Now, obviously, there's certain things that it's like a no-brainer. A house is on fire, somebody like died, or I don't know. Just like some things are just like, so you know, I don't know, you just feel like you have to call the police. But like on other things, there's like that weird like, do I do it or do I not? So the first time that I ever had to actually call 911 and call the police was little over probably about 7 or 8 months ago. Now, the reason that I actually called the police was because there was a man that was definitely, I don't know really what was going on with the guy, but he was definitely not in his best mind. So this dude was in the middle of the road as I was making a left-hand turn, and the dude seemed very, very angry. It was a summer day and I had my windows open, and as I was turning, the guy literally was in the middle of the oncoming traffic lane screaming at every single car that went by. I mean, like full-blown screaming, like spit coming out of his mouth, like full screaming, but he wasn't saying any actual words. He was just screaming. And every car that drove by, he like pretended like he was like throwing, I guess you could say, like a water bottle or something at the car to like damage the car, but he wasn't actually throwing anything. It was like he was like in a snowball fight with no one and no snow at the same time. So obviously I was a little concerned for, I mean, I wouldn't say I was necessarily concerned for the guy's safety, just because, I don't know, he was the one that was having the bad day, I guess. But I was concerned that somebody else would run into him, or if someone else would, I don't know, maybe he was like, had a weapon or something, and if a car stopped for him, he was gonna hurt them or something. So that was the first time I called the police. I called the police and just reported him, letting them know that there was a guy that was insane, and he was probably drugged up, pretending to throw stuff at cars while screaming in the middle of the road. Now, what was weird is when you call the police, at least in my area, they have to transfer you to a central location. Now, I think that might just be a me thing, just because of where I live. It's not overly populated, so they actually condense all of the call centers into one. So they basically had to transfer me over to the state police or whatever dispatch, and that's when I had to inform them of what happened. And they had informed me that I was not the only caller, which made me feel kind of good, because it made me feel like I wasn't just like ratting on some guy. I don't know. I feel like I wasn't snitching as much because I wasn't the only person that called. But what was funny is I didn't think it was like a super important situation. Like, I didn't realize at the time that it was probably a really dangerous situation. But when I was getting on the interstate, I saw 3 cop cars, oh boy, that were coming at me, not at me, but in the direction of where the guy was, with their lights blaring on. So clearly they took it a lot more serious than I thought, which is good, but I just didn't think that it was that big of a deal. But it made me feel better about, I guess, calling the police. Holy buttsicles. Oh boy. I'm done, dude. I'm done. Oh, hello. Welcome to the party, bro. How are ya? So the second time that I ever had to call the police was this past winter. So to give you guys some info, I actually live in the northeast of the United States. So there is a lot of snow and cold and just weird weather that happens in my area. So like you could, like realistically, there's some days where it is, oh my God, leave me alone. So there's some days when it can go from like, I don't know, snowing or raining to completely dry to like 60 degrees the next day. So it's pretty random weather where I live. So this day that I had to call the police again was one of those days, and it had been raining in the morning, and then all of a sudden it had changed from rain to it turned to snow really, really quickly. So if you guys don't have snow where you guys are, and if you guys don't already know, if it rains and then immediately turns to snow, that means that it's freezing temperature. So that means that anything that's wet or water related is gonna turn to ice. So if it snows right after it rains, that means that below the snow there's going to be a thick layer of ice, which is quite slippery. So obviously, me being myself, it had been snowing, so I decided that it was the best time to go and grab lunch from work. So I was headed out to go get myself some lunch right as it started snowing. So there was probably just about a half an inch of snow on the ground, but it was accumulating at probably about an inch an hour or so. And so I was driving in this, and obviously since it had just started snowing and it was the beginning of the winter, no one really expected it to be that slippery, and most people didn't even have snow tires on their car. Now, I myself don't even use snow tires anyways, but I had come across a fresh fender bender. Someone had slid into another person, and they were in the middle of the road blocking the road, and I had to actually go off the road to get around them, but no one was hurt in the accident. But I still felt that obviously I needed to call the police because I don't know, I just felt as if it was so fresh that I felt they needed someone to be there to, I don't know, assist traffic or something like that. So I decided that I was going to call the police. So I had actually just gotten a new car about 6 months ago, so I was going to call the police through my car using my fancy smanchy Bluetooth audio that I could use to call through the car. So I'm on the phone, I'm calling the police up, and I'm driving still while calling them, and so it's still extremely slippery outside. So obviously I'm on the phone with the police, so I'm a little I guess you would say I'm a little distracted at this point. So I'm answering their questions: where the accident happened, how did the accident happen, was I involved in the accident, is somebody hurt, whatever questions that they were answering. And while I was doing this, I was paying attention to the road. But I don't know if you guys ever do this when you're driving and you're almost distracted in a way, but you're like looking at the road, but you're like totally thinking about something else. That was kind of what was going on for me. So I was looking at the road, but I wasn't like fully, I guess, with it and paying attention, and cars had started to brake in front of me. So obviously if someone's braking in front of me, I decide to brake myself. And I guess I just wasn't expecting how long it was going to take for me to brake my car. So middle of me on the phone while talking to this dispatch person, I begin to slide in my car. And you know, that's scary enough, but also to do it while on the phone with the police reporting an accident that had just happened, I start to scream and well, the person on the dispatch was a little confused. Obviously I don't intend to swear all the time. I try to keep my, I guess, my mouth pretty clean, but I mean, I was about to get into an accident, and I literally, like, what happened in the accident, or would have been an accident, would have been 100% my fault. So I'm like, so I don't know, I just got scared. So what was happening is I was braking and I wasn't stopping. I was still going at the exact same speed. So I tried to, you know, steer around the car that I was about to run into. So I steered into the oncoming lane, which now thinking about it is probably the dumbest thing ever. But I don't know, I must have thought at the time that I could get in the oncoming lane and there wouldn't be any cars coming, and I would be able to miss the car that I was about to rear end and wouldn't have to turn right and go off the road. So I barely come to a stop in the oncoming traffic lane, and at this point I'm fully freaked out. This is all happening within like 4 or 5 seconds. So I'm completely in stop in the incoming lane, and luckily enough, all the traffic on the other side had somehow come to a stop as well. If they had not come to a stop, it would have been a head-on-head collision, probably a lot worse than if it had been a rear-ended collision, but I don't know, at the time, I just wasn't thinking, I guess, but I'm just grateful that I didn't actually run into the guy. But it was still really, really awkward that I had just screamed the F word multiple times on the phone while talking to the dispatch, reporting an accident, and when they asked me, they're like, yo, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm just good, I'm good. And I just kind of brushed it off, which I find kind of funny that the dispatch didn't question me anymore. I just screamed the F word probably 7 or 8 times out loud into their ear, and they just were like, okay with it. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny. So I finished up reporting, gave him my name and all the stuff that you do whenever you have to call the police, and that was it. When I drove back past where the accident was, there had been a police officer there, so they're, I think, okay. And that was basically my story of having to call the police twice. So guys, that was my story of having to call the police twice. I'm curious to hear from you guys if you guys have ever had to call the police. I definitely would be curious to know. Did you ever have to call the police, and if so, what for, and basically what happened? I guess, what's your story? So, if you guys did enjoy today's videos, make sure to show your support down below as always, guys. But I love you all. See you guys later. Peace out.